When I first started learning and practicing macrobiotics, it was like learning a whole new language and a whole new way of cooking. There was foods that I'd never cooked before or eaten before, and vegetables that I'd never even heard of that I was now including in my diet. So there was this massive learning curve that I had to go through in order to understand what to cook, how to cook, and what to eat. Now, what I've distilled this down into is there's 3 key things to focus on when eating macrobiotically. And the first one is to eat mostly plants, so a mostly plant-based diet, to eat according to the seasons, and to eat whole foods where possible on the whole. So 3 key elements, so seasonal, plant-based, and whole foods. So I like to use those as my guiding principles. Now, the reason it's plant-based is because macrobiotically speaking, plants and things that are plant-based are more centered or neutral foods. Now, in macrobiotics, there's this concept of yin and yang, and you probably know about, you've heard of yin and yang, the terms being used before, yin and yang, depending on where you come from, how it's pronounced. So some foods are more yin, some foods are more yang, and everything is relative to that. So you can't look at things in isolation, like for instance brown rice on its own. You can't say it's yin or yang. It has to be compared to something else. So if we're comparing brown rice to corn, for instance, you would probably say that brown rice is more yang in comparison to corn. And there's different reasons for that, which I can explain in another video. So what you want to look at in a macrobiotic diet is to have those plant-based foods. So this would mean avoiding things like meat and meat products, avoiding dairy and dairy products, and limiting your intake of things like eggs and honey and other things like that. So some people just opt to go vegan, which is fine, but if you still want to have a little bit of animal products, you can. It's just about having them not as often or as regularly as perhaps you were originally. And then the seasonal element is really important too, because when we eat with the seasons, we become more in tune with nature and with our surroundings. And of course, we're eating things that have low food miles as well, because if you're eating seasonally, you're hopefully eating seasonally within your geographic region, which means things that grow in the vicinity of where you live, you can then eat. So it's important to maybe go to your local farmer's market, or when you go to your supermarket and buy your fresh fruit and veg, to see what's cheapest at that time of year. And that's going to indicate, hopefully, that it's something that grows locally and is in season. Please watch out, and hopefully your supermarket labels where things are from. So if you're in Australia and you're buying things from Mexico, best to avoid. Okay, similarly, if you're overseas, you might be in Germany and you're buying things from South America, that would be best to avoid too. So buy what's grown locally and in season in your area. And then the third element, like I said, was the whole foods. So eating whole grains over refined grains. So having brown rice instead of white rice, having oats or rolled oats instead of quick oats, because they've been slightly more processed, and things like wholemeal pasta instead of white flour pasta. Also, whole foods can also mean preparing your vegetables yourself, and avoiding, and I would even say avoiding things like smoothies where things are processed and blended up together, as opposed, then rather have the whole food product, like the whole apple, the whole banana, rather than blending it up. Okay, so getting your mouth to do the work of the processing rather than maybe perhaps some mechanical process. Now, in saying that, I'm not saying smoothies are bad. It just depends, again, on the frequency in which you're having them. I wouldn't necessarily say having a smoothie every day is a great idea, but if it's better than eating something that's worse than that, then go ahead and have the smoothie. It can get a little confusing, but ultimately, what I think macrobiotics is about finding what is right for you and using those 3 guiding principles within that framework, finding what you can eat, what works with your body, what supports your body, your health and well-being, and avoiding processed foods, avoiding foods that grow out of your climactic zone, avoiding foods that aren't, not overly processed, and you should be all right to get started. If you have any questions about what I've shared in this video, please leave a comment below. I'd love to help you out, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks for watching.